Fed Heads, welcome to another Cigar Federation video review. Today we're going to be reviewing a new cigar from Acme that debuted at the IPCPR 2015 in New Orleans. This is the Premier Ecuador. Now you can see by the band, a little off-putting. Unfortunately, they had to use a stand-in band because they didn't have bands in time for the show. So this is the Premier Ecuador from Acme, but they just didn't have the bands ready. If you want to check out the actual Acme band, you can do so on their website or on Cigar Federation. We've got other Acme reviews up. But the Premier Ecuador, obviously, the reason they're using Ecuador is because it's an Ecuadorian Habano wrapper over Mexican San Andreas broadleaf and an Esteli binder. So it's kind of interesting. There's a couple cigars in the market using the San Andreas as a binder, and I think they're really interesting cigars. So I'm excited to try this out. Fillers in there are Dominican and Nicaraguan. This is a 5x50. And the MSRP on this is $7.40. So it's pretty approachable. So we're going to get to nosing this, get to toasting this, get to lighting this, and get the review kicked off here. So get some chocolate and some rich cedar off the wrapper here. Maybe a hint of spices. Hay and wood in the foot. It's really cedar. But it's not very strong. It's like a light plus, maybe a medium minus. Well, color me interested. So we'll get to toasting, lighting, and kick it off. So if you haven't already, definitely recommend checking out the Acme interview. It's got Jay Lundy from AKA Cigars in it as well. Jay's kind of partnered, gave some booth space to Acme. So it's kind of a fun interview. We always have a good time with the guys at AK, and the interview with Acme is also pretty entertaining. IPCPR is kind of a good time for us to catch up with everybody. So we try to keep it professional, but we try to have fun as well. So as always, I'm doing my pre-toast, and if I do it right here, I'll be able to just cut and go. The purpose of this is to make sure no hot gases are pulled down into the cigar, potentially altering the flavor. So that's pretty good. Do my X cut or V cut here. Draw is great. A little bit of coffee note and some spices off the initial draw. Spices and cedar on the retrohale. This is interesting. So we'll let this cigar settle in, check back in. Oh, and there's a nice cedar chocolate aftertaste, actually, a bit delayed there. But we'll let the first third settle in, check back, and see what other flavors can develop here. So the spices here started out kind of light plus, and I think they picked up to a medium in intensity. Spices are definitely lingering between the draw and kind of running over the chocolate I was talking about when we initially started out. Some creaminess developing in the retrohale. Not as spicy in the retrohale as it is in the main draw, which is interesting, but the spices are definitely lingering at the back of my throat. Good first third start. So we've got a long ways to go. Keep checking in. About 8 minutes in, there's some hickory barbecue developing. Always enjoy when I get a little bit of sort of savory meat in a cigar. It adds complexity and interest to me. I'm only about a half inch in, so a lot of flavor changes as the cigar starts out. I'm sure it's going to settle in the first inch here, and I'll report back in and see what other flavors come out if they do, but we'll talk about what cigars or what the flavors settle down to. So at the 15-minute mark, I feel like the first third's really settled into balance here. You got that initial bit of spice, which is not overpowering. It's like a medium minus to maybe a medium. You get a little bit of cedar rounding out the spice, and then you get a little bit of chocolate, which is undoubtedly from that San Andreas wrapper, or binder, pardon me. I'm so used to saying San Andreas wrapper because it's, always used as a wrapper. But that rounds it out with a little bit of chocolate to finish. Burning well, you can see the ash is holding nicely, and the draw is great. So far, so good. I mean, it's a nicely balanced cigar at a really good price point, $7.40. So I'll keep smoking, keep checking in. Just over to the 20-minute mark, I think the only thing to report is there is some earthiness coming through, light plus earthiness kind of mixing in with the spices and the cedar, and that's about the only other thing to report. So we've still got probably another 15-20 minutes before it gets into the middle third. 25-minute mark, out of nowhere, the chocolate is really come to the forefront here. It's medium, almost a medium plus. Really overpowering into the earth, overpowering the spices and the cedar. Just adds this rounded, creamy chocolate richness to the cigar. And we're almost in the middle third here, which is about right. You know, you probably expect about 45 minutes at the halfway part. Robusto's smoking times usually around an hour 30, an hour 45. If you're smoking not too fast, that's about right. You can always smoke slower and probably get some more flavors out of it, but an hour and a half, an hour 45, that's about right. Approaching the 40-minute mark, just getting into the middle third, and the chocolate that was at the end of the last third is really carried into the middle third. Again, medium plus with a bit of a dry cedar to finish, and the dry cedar is kind of lingering between the draws. A lot more cedar on the retrohale, almost like a green cedar on the retrohale. Traces of spices are almost undetectable at this point, so we'll let the middle third settle in and check back in. Just passing the 45-minute mark. Middle third is still largely comprised of chocolate, which is kind of fallen to a medium, maybe a medium minus, and cedar. And again, the cedar kind of lingers after the draw, kind of lingering post-draw as a little bit of drawingness to it. The green cedar is kind of let up a little bit on the retrohale. A little bit of toasted nuts coming through, but it's very, very light. I would even put it at a light plus. I'd put it at a straight light. So we'll see what other flavors come out in the middle third here. Coming up on the 1 hour mark, there's some creaminess that's come through, kind of balancing out with the chocolate and the cedar. It's sweet but not too sweet. So just again, kind of rounding out the flavors that are here. Not much else to report on for the retrohale. Still have probably about 10 or 15 minutes in the middle third before we get into the final third here. Another flavor change to report on. The retrohale did transition, so there's that nuttiness, as reporting on earlier, is picked up in intensity, and it's overpowering the cedar and the post draw. So you still get a little bit of the cedar post draw, but the nuttiness kind of rounds it out, especially in the mouthfeel. At about the hour and 10 mark, really getting into the final third here, there's some vegetal, which is about a light plus, and the spices have come back in the retrohale. Again, a kind of a light plus, medium minus. Not much else to report, so we'll let the final third settle in, see if there's any other flavor changes, and then wrap up the review of this Acme Premier Ecuador. Coming up on the hour and a half mark, not much else to report on in the final third, but I still have about 15 minutes. Going to wrap up this review of the Acme Premier Ecuador. Great cigar. Going to appeal to a wide variety of smokers. It's got some spice, but nothing that's going to blast away someone who likes to smoke in the light plus to medium category. It's got a lot of flavor complexity. Really enjoyed it. So if you enjoyed the video review of the Acme Premier Ecuador, make sure to check out the written review on CigarFederation.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our videos for more content. Thanks very much for tuning in, Fedheads, and we'll see you at the next review.